Hello, good evening, all my travel kaki, fellow friends around the world, and also photographer. You're welcome again to these episodes that I'm cover another important milestone in my travel to the southern Xinjiang. Now today I'm going to share with you a very grand canyon. Of course, it's not as grand as what you can see in the USA in terms of size, but in terms of beauty, this is indeed a Grand Canyon. This Grand Canyon is called Tianshan Grand Canyon of China. Now, a quick one, that the Xinjiang province in China is the largest province. Will occupy about 1/6 of our landmass and is located in the northwestern most of in China. And we are covering today this Tianshan Grand Canyons is basically classified under southern Xinjiang, the area that is colored in blue. And why you call it as a Tianshan Grand Canyon? Because this Grand Canyon was found on the foothills of the Tianshan mountain range. It's actually the mountain range that cutting and dividing the Xinjiang into northern and southern Xinjiang as what you see in the maps. And the exact location of this Grand Canyon is actually as what shown in this arrow sign. But before you go further, let's share a bit about this Tianshan mountain range. Now, Tianshan mountain range is the mountain range that cut across Xinjiang province from east to west into half, right? With a length of 1,760 kilometers and cover an area of around 570,000 square kilometers. And with this division, exactly it is now forming a geographical barrier or dividing line between the northern and southern Xinjiang. Now, the Tianshan Grand Canyon is located in the Tianshan Mountains range and is also known as the Tianshan Kuga Grand Canyon. Right, and this name is because it's near to a town called Kuga, or you can see in this map here, they also call Kucha. Now, the local given to this Grand Canyon another name that's called Xinjiang Grand Canyon in Uyghur's language means the Red Cliff, right? And of course, it's a rare natural scenic spot in China. Okay, now let's move on with the tour of this Tianshan Grand Canyon. As you tour around, I'm going to share with you with some of this geographic information about this Grand Canyon. Now, as we approach the Tianshan mountain range and about close near to the Tianshan Grand Canyon, you can see the reddish sandstone that is surfacing along our routes, right, on our left, because we travel from the west to the east, and we are actually from Kashgar, excuse me. So this Tianshan Grand Canyon is actually located about 70 km north of Kuga town under Kucha country and also Aksu prefecture of Xinjiang. Now, this Tianshan Grand Canyon is basically been classified as one of the unique and beautiful canyon in China. Now, let me talk about why this canyon has been discovered. Now, this canyon was only discovered in the year of 1999, which is actually about 21 years from now. It was during a stormy day by a herdsman, like Uyghur herdsmen were taking shelter. And this Grand Canyon, who stood at an altitude of 1,600 meters above sea level and are not been awarded as a national geopark with 4A rating by the China government in the year 2013. At the same time, this Tianshan also been regarded as the 10 most beautiful gorge in the world by the National Geographic Magazine, as well as the 10 most beautiful canyon in China. And let's move on. As we travel along from the west to east from Kashgar, and this is the scenery just about a kilo or two before we're reaching the actual tourist spot. That's actually the Grand Canyon, the ticketing building. So all what you can see on this surface is all red sandstone. Now basically Tianshan Grand Canyon is a reddish brown canyon, comprises of red sandstone and glutinite, right? It's located at the southern foothill. Now these colors, this sandstone is also because of this nature of this soil or sandstone that allow the formation of this canyon. And I want to share with you some very interesting fact about this canyon. Basically, this canyon is, as I said earlier, is classified as slot canyon. By just definition, it means it's a long, narrow, deep, and tortuous, right, canal or drainage way with shear wall that are typically eroded into either sandstone or other sedimentary rocks. Now, slot canyons always have a depth to width ratio that typically exceeding 10 to 1. That means you have a height 10 and then you have the width is only 1. This is only the beginning, but most of the time it could even reach 100 to 1. Now, only one thing you have to be careful that as you travel in this or visiting the Grand Canyons, that you have to watch out that there are some danger that may threaten the visitor. But before we go into that, let's move on with the images. So after it's enter from the ticketing boats, the ticketing buildings, and we still need to walk about half a kilometers before we reach the actual real entry point to this Grand Canyons. And this is a path that there's a walk along, and this is a scene that we see along the way. So not very outstanding and unique at the earlier part, but actually, fortunately, we were told that actually the beautiful part are actually the inner part, the second half of the journey. And as I want to share with you about some of the fact again on this Grand Canyon. Now, this Grand Canyon have a total length of 5.5 kilometer depth, right? And have a wider spot is 53 meter, and yet the narrowest spot or point is 4.4 meter, which hardly one person can pass through. So I want to share with you later on a photograph or images. You look carefully, and some of the images will tell you exactly what I mean by slot canyon. So as you walk along the way, and you can see that the picture on the right is we are most closing to the entry point, the real entry point, right? And they're more like a valley, you know, a V shape at the center of the lower center of the second image on the right. So this is just the first 10% of the journey. So finally we come close, and you can see that as you come close, you start looking at the shear wall. You can see the mark of the erosions caused by the scouring waters. Now, another thing I want to share with you is on this Tianshan, this slot canyons. Now, the many slot canyons are formed in sandstone and in limestone rocks, and exactly in this case, is a sandstone formations. But the possibility is very, very low, and are usually found in the drier regions. It's again coincide in these regions because this southern Xinjiang and this portion itself is actually are very dry. In fact, you go further south, it actually is deserts. So it's considered a dry regions. Now, therefore, it's believed that this Tianshan Canyon was formed by scouring of running rainwater to form the stream after rain, and have taken at least more than 100 million years to reach its current state. Because first of all, it's dry regions, very few rainfall, and if there any rain that is not heavy enough, the rainwater are not enough to generate the running waters to be able to scout through and forming the so-called drainage way, and which cut the ground, erodes and cut the ground right down and to form a slot canyon. So therefore, it's not easy to find slot canyon around the world. Now, so when we reach the mouth of the Grand Canyon, we need to ascend a step, timber ladders, and that ladder is about 3 meters in height. After we went up of that ladder and crossed over, suddenly you realize actually we have to descend a bit, and this is what you see in this picture. Then you find that actually we are fronted by a pool, right? And this is actually the collection, the point of the running waters from the canyon all the way until this point, right? So we have to walk on the man-made pathway in order to go into the canyon, and this is what you can see in this picture. And don't underestimate this pool here. This pool of waters, the depth of this pool can easily more than 3 meters in depth. So after passing this man-made suspension bridge or walking platforms, and now we go into the actual proper of this Grand Canyon. We are walking at the bottoms of the canyons, or rather now it's actually the beds, the running water, right? In the event of rain. So you can see these are the images. And one thing for sure that if you're visiting so-called slot canyon, like in this case, you have to be very careful that you try to avoid raining season. But unfortunately, if you are during your visit, you realize it's raining, then you have to be extra cautious, because one of the uniqueness or feature of this slot canyon is that it's very easy subject to flash floods, right? The flash floodings actually can kill because the water that comes so fast, and because of the narrowness and the depth, all right? So all the water that comes from rainwater can easily fill up the lower portion of the canyon valley. So if you happen to be walking at the bottom of these canyons, you can actually hit by this flash water. So therefore, as we travel in the Grand Canyon, you can see quite a number of so-called warning signs to the visitor that ask them to be more alert in the event of rain. And for these reasons, let's move on. As this is the part in the picture now, is we are getting into a very interesting sections of this Grand Canyon, and you can see that a certain point is fairly narrow, right? I can see from picture on the left, right at the far end. And the images that I've taken is we are lucky because it's a sunny day, and we are there in the morning. So about 10 a.m. the local time, or maybe it's about 1 p.m. the Beijing time, the sun is just shine at quite a perfect directions, so we get these beautiful images. So you can see the mark, the line, the form on the wall, right, of these canyons is so beautiful, and this basically are watermark, the water erosions by running waters. So we spend quite a fair bit of time on these middle sections of the canyon because it's considered one of the most beautiful sections. And we come a point whereby we have a very wide base, and we have actually have a very narrow slot at the upper portions, and they give me these fascinating and images. And 5.5 kilometer of length actually take quite a fair bit to walk. We are not aware of our speed as a photographer. We spend too much time in taking picture, and subsequently we were advised that if you don't speed up our pace, probably you can even not able to cover the full length. And in fact, we made a mistake. We spent about 2/3 of time in the first half, and we only have 1/3 of our time at the second half. And we are only given 2 hours. So I would strongly suggest that you visit this Grand Canyon, try to allow a full half day, at least a 4 hour of traveling time, because to walk leisurely and take beautiful images all the way in itself and all the way out, you will need to about 2 hours in, 2 hours out. That is the best timing. I would recommend any tour agency want to organize any tour to this, please allow more time if in your group have a lot of photographers. So we are walking, and of course the first half we are walking, but the second half we are running because we have to come back and meet at the meeting point, by the set time. And this is most one of the widest spot. We are very lucky that actually the lighting on that day is very, 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 very beautiful. So you can see on the base or the ground that we walk on later on some images that I'm going to share with you. You can see that there's still can see some running waters, tiny stream. You can see the picture on the left. You can see the stream, the running waters. And you can see now, okay, the ratio on the picture on the left. All right, if you look at the height versus the width, it's definitely is more than 10:1. All right, so by that definition of slot canyon, and this match well to this Tianshan Grand Canyon. So be prepared. If you are unfortunately having to be raining, then you will see that there much more water be running on the ground that you walk on it. You see the scouring marks of the running rainwaters over millions of years to form this unique Grand Canyon. So you can see that the stream, the running waters all along the way. And I might mention that actually this Grand Canyon, the Slot Canyon, is not the same with the Grand Canyon in USA. The Grand Canyon in USA is called a river canyon, right? but in this case it's a slot canyon. So it's although it still is a canyon, but actually the classification is not the same. So we have been traveling, walking, and as I said earlier, the second portion, the second half of it, are providing much better images, and also less people. And we are the very few that walk until the end. Is most of our tour mates actually halfway through, or maybe even 2/3, they U-turn back because of running out of time. But because we as a photographer, you don't miss any chance of taking any images of the place that we visit. Literally, we're running all the way from the second half, running into the end and then running out all the way. So the light is better, turning better and better as we approach noon time. And I must mention here that actually this Grand Canyon is not just only a natural site. It was surprisingly, actually, this Grand Canyon also housed a Tang Dynasty grottos called Kizil Thousand Buddha. They mean that's 2,000 years ago. Actually, this area is already a Buddhist center, and they actually have people, right, inside this Grand Canyon. And actually, because of that, you can find cave that covered with beautiful mural, right, and at the same time as this goddess, right. And this is only discovered, right, after the Grand Canyon has been discovered. Later on they realized it's only probably maybe 15 years ago. They realized actually they have some very long historical value in this Grand Canyon. So as you walk along, you can see some of these stone along the way that have been placed by the local. So some of the path that we walk through is really, really narrow. You can see from these images. Be prepared that your shoe could be wet, because in certain paths you really have to step on the running waters on the floor. It's quite fairly flat, on the floor, because these are all the sediments, deposit of the loose particles of the sand that's brought down by the rain waters, and then they just settle down, deposit on the base, find its own level. Now this is when we look up in one of the stretch that considered quite a narrow stretch. When you walk up the time, look up the time, this is actually the gap you can find, in this Grand Canyon. The distance between these two sheer walls, right, is probably, as I mentioned earlier, probably even less than 0.4 meter. And finally, you see that there's a cave. This is actually one of the caves that actually were found some interesting so-called the mural that on the wall. But it's so high up that we did not visit this cave. And anyway, we have no time. We are running in and running out. Okay, that's the end of today. I'm sharing you with this Tianshan Grand Canyon. It's a very beautiful canyon, it's a very unique canyon. So if you have any chance to visit China, to Xinjiang, please do make a trip to this Grand Canyon. Right, and lastly, I have to inform you that the next preview of next episode. In the coming episode, we are going to share with you again 2 more ancient towns on the Silk Roads. And these ancient towns again are thousands of years of history. And please stay tuned in this coming episode. And before I bring you to another more interesting episode that will deal with the landscape again. Right? So this is the fourth episode of my Southern Xinjiang travel, and thanks you for staying with me. Please stay tuned again next Saturday at the same time, and bye. See you then, and have a good day.